Welcome back to the channel, everyone, and well, today I'm just going to discuss something that has really been on my mind lately, and that's actually what the hell is going on with the state of gaming. So today we're going to go over several parts, such as 1, the political agenda, 2, investor pressures, and then 3, really the impact of the global economy. So there's a lot to unpack, so let's just go ahead and jump right into this. First and foremost, let's talk about politics and gaming. So there's one difference between following a story and then there's a difference in altering a story. So let's start off with, well, Assassin's Creed Shadows. This game was an absolute flop. They essentially tried to rewrite history by inserting the first
Black. If I don't say it, I'll pass out.
alleged samurai in feudal Japan, which absolutely did not happen. And so essentially, well, sales dropped by 30% compared to Valhalla. It was just an absolute dumpster fire that Ubisoft, well, I don't think they anticipated. Let's go next on to Forspoken. This game was heavily marketed for its diverse cast and inclusive narrative, but absolutely just crashed and burned. According to Square Enix's financial report, the game was an absolute financial disaster, I tell you. Far below the company's expectations were set to at least $2 million. Next, let's go over to Saints Row. This one actually was just horrible. So essentially, it was one of the worst disappointments of 2022. The Metacritic score was 61 out of 100 and sales were 40% lower than anticipated. So if those of you who have not played the game, it is a lot more fruity than the previous one. Now let's look at Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. This one was supposed to run off of the coattails of the movies, like being a gigantic hit, everyone going to see it, you name it. However, this game actually lost over $200 million. The game was absolutely hollow, despite having a really shiny outer core. It was just absolutely terrible. Next, Alan Wake. Some people call it Alan Woke 2. Originally it was expected to be a massive hit. This game took forever for them to make. I tell you, years. But reports indicate that this game only, despite selling 1.3 million copies, they have yet to make a profit. Not only that, but the character Saga Anderson was actually originally white, but it was then converted to being
Black. If I don't say it, I'll pass out.
Next, look at Call of Duty Vanguard. This one had to be one of the worst Call of Duties, in my opinion, in history. 40% less sales than Cold War. And basically, a study by the MPD group found that 58% of the players basically believed the game was just absolutely dog water, compared to earlier titles, which is kind of crazy. Next, look at Redfall. This one was another one that was absolutely nuts. Studio went absolute under. It was Arcane Studios that created it, and the game saw over a 75% drop in player count within 1 month of release. Next, we're going to get into part 2, I like to call the greedy bigwigs. Now, this one actually just deals with several things. First, let's go over tighter deadlines with higher turnover rates. So really the push around investor expectations just leads to higher crunch times, unrealistic deadlines, and higher turnover rates. Look at, for instance, movies. That's why CGI is so crap right now. Everyone just wants to rush, saying, well, this is my money, I'm putting it here, I say the deadline is this date. I don't care about all the time it takes for you guys. I don't care if you guys work overtime. We want this out now. A study by the International Game Developers Association found that 39% of developers experienced a crunch in the past year, with 60% reporting increased stress and burnout. But this isn't just for developers, it's even bad for gamers too. When games are rushed, they often just launch in an unfinished state, leading to disappointing experiences for players. Hell, remember Cyberpunk 2077? That game was one of the most anticipated titles in recent history, but launched with so many bugs and performance issues. Project Red's stock plummeted by 30% in the weeks following release. This game's launch was just absolutely forwarded to the investors, because the investors want, the investors get, which obviously leads to limited creativity, and it just suffers as a whole because you can't have these guys that want to create this game, well, the way games should be made. Instead, you have a bunch of, guys in suits that have never touched a controller in their life, and they only see the end product. They fail to even understand or realize what happens on the pre and the during, much less the post. Next, live service games. These absolutely, not even just as a creator, are hard to keep up with, but even as a developer, I can imagine they are hard to keep up with and create. Live service games are so profitable. SuperData estimated that they generated over $120 billion in revenue in 2023. However, not every game is suited for this model. Some games just are intended to be single player offline, like, some of them should be. But ever since Fortnite launched, they all thought, well, this guy's running it this way. I want to make money like this guy, so let's also do a battle royale, Let's also have all of these, weekly updates. And more studios are being pressured to incorporate such live elements into their games, such as, even though they're not supposed to be a single player experience. I mean, let's just even jump over to Helldivers. You see, you have a smaller studio and they can't meet all the demands of all of these players, and thus, they are rushed to produce things. They are rushed to try to make, buffs, but instead they're rushed to do nerfs. And some things take, they say 4 or 5 weeks because it's just such a long assembly line. And so that right there is just hard enough for them to keep up with. A survey by the Game Industry Biz found that 65% of gamers are actually frustrated with the increasing number of games adopting this live service model, particularly when it feels forced. And well, what is the result? Everyone just feeling rushed and can't even really keep up with anything. Because we all have our own lives, and not everyone can keep up with every daily updates or daily additions to, let's just say, the item shop. So monetization strategies on this have been absolutely capitalized on by these big wigs. Like, instead of just paying $60, $70 now for a game, there are now additional things in the item shop and cosmetics that can cost even more than the actual game. Juniper Research estimated that the global spending on in-game purchases, including microtransactions, reached $200 billion in 2023. But here's the problem. Cosmetic bundles, like I said earlier, can cost even more than the actual price of the game. What does that mean? More money. What does that also mean? More of a priority on the actual, branches of the tree instead of the actual tree itself, which causes everything else to suffer as a whole. A Statista survey found that 78% of gamers believe microtransactions are exploitive, and 67% feel that they negatively impact the overall experience, which I don't blame you. Like, it just takes away from the whole just heart and spirit of the game because they're more worried about scrounging for extra dollars. So just instead of fixing patches on the game, they're worried about fixing the next skin, the next animation. Next, and finally, it's the damn economy. Let's be real. I don't know about you, but we are all struggling to go paycheck to paycheck. Inflation, everything is now 43% more expensive than it was last year, which leads to less spending on games. According to the NPD Group, the video game sales in the US declined by 10% in the first half of 2023 compared to the previous year. With inflation and economic uncertainty, people are being more cautious with their spending. This means fewer purchases, and when people do buy games, they're often waiting in sales or looking for, older titles that they already own. This basically leads to more pressure on studios, especially after smaller indie developers. A report by Entertainment Software Association, ESA, found that 65% of indie developers faced financial difficulties in the past year due to reduced game sales. So when revenue is down, studios have to make tough decisions, and that cuts budgets for new projects, which delays releases and even cancels games entirely. So there you have it. I mean, I don't know about you, but this industry is in a very tough place right now from all sides of the triangle. I mean, we have the investors on one side, we have, politics and DEI on the other, and then we just have a really bad economy. And all three of these are just fucking us from both sides of the force. So what do you think? Are you feeling the same frustration as I do when it comes to the current state of gaming? This is just something I've just been, brewing on for the past few weeks, and I just thought, well, let's just make a video on it. So let me know what you think in the comments below, and I look forward to seeing all of you in the next one.